Now it's time for your feature reports. Up first, WFHB correspondent Aaron Comforti talked to Abby Ang, activist and scholar of the No Space for Hate group. Ang talks about alt-right flyers found at Indiana University, of which NSFH calls an example of crypto-fascism or covert fascism. Here now is that interview.
There have been reports that a poster was found on the IU campus. It's causing quite a stir. Could you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, certainly. So some IU students reached out to us to let us know that they had found posters at locations such as the Wells Library. And these posters had the caption, "Are IU woke enough?" And then it had the claim that academic freedom is under attack from a small number of ultra-woke faculty. And it also encouraged IU students and staff to document and record any instances of this kind of ultra-wokeness. And the kind of words that they used, they talked about struggle sessions, and they talked about how people are not allowed to dissent over issues like implicit bias, white privilege, or the Marxist origins of Black Lives Matter. And basically asked them to send this information to a particular email address so that they could document what was happening. We've seen flyers in the past from different groups that kind of try to recruit recently white supremacist groups like American Vanguard and other organizations like that. And so this is kind of slightly different from that because it doesn't name a particular organization. But it sounds very, very similar to other campaigns that have happened in the past. So, for example, one thing that scholars have been told to be, or scholars and researchers and faculty have been told nationally to be aware of is campaigns to record videos, especially since a lot of teaching is going online. There's been a campaign from Turning Point USA from Charlie Kirk, and he told college students, he tweeted this out back in March, he said now that basically professors are switching to online classes, and he asked students to share with Turning Point videos of what he called blatant indoctrination, and he tweeted that now is the time to document and expose the radicalism that has been infecting our schools. And basically what that does is to name and shame professors who advance what they call a liberal agenda. Chronicle of Higher Ed did a good overview about the implications of this for faculty and graduate students. And they said that research shows that although many faculty can screw up politically, there's really no evidence of a kind of campaign or siege against conservative thought in the classroom. But this phrase of indoctrination is a common right-wing talking point. And because we're all moving online now, the transition to remote learning, it basically means that students have more recorded material to share. And so the concern here is that people are taking videos from classes that are taught by marginalized faculty. So what that means is Black faculty, and Black and Indigenous and people of color graduate students who might be teaching courses on diversity, Black history, African American studies, Asian American studies. And we track this down, this particular account that's been circulating these flyers just by searching through the hashtag. And the Twitter account that's been tweeting these flyers basically have posted videos of faculty members, particularly Black faculty members, and have been encouraging followers to basically open these faculty up for targeted harassment from far-right people. We can't say that this is something like Turning Point USA, which, by the way, does have a chapter on campus, and the leaders of the Turning Point USA are from the Kelley School of Business, which is funded by the Koch brothers Foundation. Because they haven't specifically identified that they're from Turning Point USA, but it sounds a lot, very, very similar to that kind of campaign.
Right. And you bring up the Koch brothers, and their funding of the Kelley School of Business and the Turning Point campaign, if I'm saying that right. Maybe you could connect the details, connect the dots between those different organizations and institutions for us.
Yeah, I would like to explain a little bit about Turning Point USA. And so, yeah, the Kelley School of Business does accept donations from the Koch brothers Foundation, which also funds campus organizations called Turning Point USA. And so Turning Point USA is not declared an official hate group, but their leaders have expressed support for white supremacist members of the Boogaloo movement and have been very much aligned with far-right groups that seek to foment this kind of idea that there's a race war. Turning Point is an example of one of these far-right, very conservative political action type of groups, kind of spread the idea that there's kind of some campaign against conservative thought, that conservative students are being oppressed and marginalized. Ideas like white privilege isn't really a thing.
And just to be clear, we're not saying that these posters are directly tied to Turning Point USA, but there's something similar in the messaging. Have you tied the posters to anyone locally?
We have not tied it to a specific person or locally. I did want to add that Turning Point USA is well known for compiling something called a Professor Watch List. And so what that Professor Watch List is a list of faculty who teach in African studies and gender studies, and they label these folks like cultural Marxists. And so the concern here is this kind of surveillance of faculty and students who might teach anything that they deem a threat to conservative thought. A lot of graduate students teach classes like these as well, and they don't necessarily have the kind of protections that tenured faculty may have. As a graduate student myself who teaches on gender and race, that is also a concern to me personally.
What I hear you saying is that, in effect, this poster is advocating for a type of surveillance that is harming African American, Black professors, gender studies professors, area studies, ethnic studies, etc. professors and graduate students, instructors. Have any professors or graduate students at Indiana University reached out to you, or have you heard of any of them who have talked about harassment from this group or others like it?
Not yet, but we did see that this Twitter account had specifically named particular faculty members. And so we have made those faculty members aware. We've also reached out to IU to report the flyers and the Twitter account, so just so they can do their own investigation as well. And the Twitter account did feature videos of IU faculty.
And did the university respond after you notified them of the poster?
I haven't heard yet from the university, but I assume they're probably aware of it since it's been going around on social media at this point.
Okay, well, Abby Ang, thank you so much for joining WFHB and telling us about this poster that is causing a stir on the IU Bloomington campus.
Thank you.
Up next.